How long until I get to my Walgreens and I can take a pill called Microplastics Be Gone?
So this is the Wild West now. I know there are companies that are built around the therapeutic plasma exchange model, plasma apheresis, where you literally are, you know, it's almost like dialysis, um, and that probably does remove microplastics from the blood, but it probably doesn't necessarily remove it from the entire body. Um, there's probably other interesting things that come out of plasma apheresis related to longevity, but the jury is definitely out. It's not for everybody. I think there was an article recently that Orlando Bloom, everyone's favorite elf from the Hobbit series, paid £10,000, €10,000 for a single treatment to remove these from his blood.
Huh.
So it's not going to be something that humanity can depend on as a solution to this. So we're in this weird mindset that it's the individual's choice, but that is not how we solved air pollution in our country. It's not how we cleaned up the water systems in our country. We depended on a responsible federal government to create a healthy environment for everybody, and so we really need to shift the discussion around what to do. There are pushes right now. The United Nations has an alliance, a group, working group for a global plastic treaty. Um, I I wish them luck. I'm certainly on board and in agreement that something needs to be done on a global level. But I think that historically we've done a lot better in regulating pollution at the federal level. Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, signed into law by Richard Nixon. They're phenomenal pieces of legislation. They've really
Hmm.
made positive change in this country. I'd like to get there with plastics, and I think that there are some rational, business-friendly opportunities that the federal government can start building a framework for.
Yeah, give me an example of what you think about.
Couple months ago, we were having conversations with the CEO of SC Johnson.
Okay.
So Fisk Johnson is the third generation scion of the Ziploc empire.
Yep, up near
You-
Racine, Wisconsin, close to
Right,
Chicago.
right. So he's an avid scuba diver, and
Hmm.
he goes in the oceans and he sees plastic, and he knows that his company has benefited from these things, and so he
Yep.
he feels some responsibility. But when he instructed his company to start incorporating more post-consumer recycled material into their bottles, they looked kind of gray or dingy and not as shiny and bright as other companies' beautiful, shiny new bottles. And they almost immediately saw a drop in market share.
Got it.
And so, there's nothing so miraculous about. I mean, I don't want to poo-poo the industry, but a Ziploc bag can be made by a lot of companies. So why would he sacrifice his family company for a principle and have it do absolutely nothing in the global theater from a plastic standpoint? So his
Hmm.
point is, why don't we have a legislation? Why don't we have a law that says all purveyors of plastic commodities have to incorporate a certain level of post-consumer recycled material? Levels the playing field.
Yep. Got it.
Now, now you're not selling something based on your shiny bottle. It's based on the quality of your product, as it should be, right? So that's one example. I think another thing that we could do is right now this planet burns 8 billion tons of coal every year. There's only 8 billion tons of plastic on this planet.
Hmm.
So if you start increasing the number of waste to energy treatment plants, right now there's great examples in Vancouver, Copenhagen, Singapore. These are not third world cities. These are high examples of fine civilization, and they have waste to energy treatment plants. They get a lot of energy from these things. So waste to energy treatment plants are cleaner than coal. They're more efficient than coal. So if you start titrating out some of the coal and increasing the waste to energy production, then that becomes a solution, and you're not landfilling nearly as much waste as you have been. So I honestly think there's level-headed solutions that we can discuss.
You mentioned earlier that Orlando Bloom has decided and went through a exercise to, in essence, filter his blood to take out the microplastics. That probably is not something we're all going to rush out and do. What do we do if we're not going to go to that extreme and filter our blood? But what can we do to limit the uptake?
Our best advice right now is to limit your meat intake and to when you're eating meat, stick to really like high quality fresh meats. Certainly, in our studies, venison and grass fed beef seem to be the lowest quantity meats by 50 to 100 times compared to, say, canned meats, canned meat products.
Huh.
Beef sticks seem to have a lot of plastics in them. So we're
Okay.
still working on that data, and we're still working to like comparing those with vegetables and fruits and trying to create a broader recommendation. But that's really the main thing is, the processed foods probably are not that good for you.
Okay, but you also mentioned that if it's on agricultural products, if it's coming in through irrigation, I mean, should you cut down on um, fruits and vegetables that are heavily water based, i.e., watermelon, and say that's just dangerous? Cut
Oh,
back.
I basically exist off of this amazing watermelon gazpacho that I make every month.
Okay.
You're never, you will never get me bad mouthing the watermelon industry. Um,
Okay.
uh, so I don't know. I mean, uh, there are certainly dry farming practices, and if you know, like I know different regions like Idaho and places like that may have less of an irrigation. I don't know enough. I'm out of my depth here,
Okay.
but certainly if you can obtain foods that have lower irrigation dependence, then that might help. But I really don't have data to support that.
One thing I will ask you to do is send along your watermelon gazpacho recipe so we can
Oh,
include that with the story.
so good.
You don't really get many testaments for that kind of gazpacho, so it's got to be extraordinary. This may be a tough question to answer given where we are politically right now, but if I came back to you 5, 10 years from now and said, what improvements do you hope, even in the challenging political environment we're operating in, what improvements on some of these things do you hope we've been able to make?
Um, I'd like to see legislation happen. I'd like to see the
Okay.
establishment of, you call it what you want, a Clean Plastics Act, something like that, that really does take each of these pieces. Waste management needs to be done better. Recycling needs to become, functional. Period. And maybe we need to consider limiting the production of plastics. I put that last because in the current administration, there's no way that gets put on the table. I know that
Right.
that is a non-starter for a number of countries for the plastics treaty. Certainly, oil producers refuse to sign on to that, but it's probably, there will be future administrations that say, we just have to do it. We have to. Exponential growth is not a good thing, and that's what we have with plastics on this planet.